It hit me all at once. This wasn't just a simple thank you anymore. There was something deeper in the air, something unspoken yet shared. And when I looked up, the way they were looking at me said more than words ever could. They were ready to cross a line I hadn't even imagined. Before we dive in, if you're a regular here, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're new, welcome. You're in the right place for stories that pull you in. The dishes were still on the table, forgotten for the moment, as if the world had paused. I leaned back, wine glass in hand, watching Mark and Bill. Not the casual, polite look you give friends. No, this was different. Something had shifted, subtle, yet impossible to ignore, between the second toast and the third compliment. You know, Bill said, stretching a little too casually. It's kind of wild that someone like you lives here all on your own. Mark swirled the last of his drink, eyes not leaving mine. Seriously, handling that move, making dinner, you've got it all together. I mean, really, how do you do it? I smiled slowly, letting them watch. Plenty, I said, standing, reaching for their plates. My movement was casual, but the confidence behind it didn't go unnoticed. Mark chuckled low, eyes following me. No way someone let you go. You must have walked out of somewhere. I didn't answer. Just carried the plates to the kitchen, letting the moment linger. When I returned, I didn't sit. I leaned in the doorway, wine in hand, taking them in. I'll be honest, I said softly. It's been a long time since two people at my table made me feel this noticed. Bill smirked. Someone's been making serious mistakes, huh? Big ones, Mark added with a grin. I took a slow sip, heart rate climbing, not from the wine, but from the way they leaned in, drawn in by something intangible. Maybe I was waiting for the right pair. I teased lightly. The kind that works well together. Their eyes locked on me, and for a moment, silence said more than words ever could. Neither was stepping back. They were waiting, patient and deliberate. I walked toward them slowly, letting each step stretch the tension. Stopping between them, I let my fingers brush lightly past Mark's shoulder. A small laugh escaped him, a sound of surprise and something more. Then I leaned toward Bill, just close enough to tease. Do you two want dessert, or are you already full? Bill's gaze flickered to my lips, a small, knowing smile playing at the corners. I think there's room for one more thing, he replied, voice low. I returned his smile, and for a heartbeat, we just held the moment. The air was charged, warm with curiosity, flirtation, and anticipation, but nothing rushed. I let the tension linger, letting them feel the chemistry without crossing any line. Mark shifted slightly closer, silent but present. I let my hand rest lightly on Bill's arm, while my eyes met Mark's. We didn't speak, but the electricity between us was undeniable. The night stretched on like this, glances, teasing words, laughter mixed with small touches, all carefully measured. The attraction was there, simmering just beneath the surface. Every look and movement held promise, leaving enough to the imagination to keep hearts racing. The room seemed to shrink around us, the soft light from the kitchen casting long shadows. Every glance, every small movement, felt deliberate, as if we were all dancing around something unspoken. I poured myself another glass of wine, letting the liquid settle the moment while I watched them. Mark and Bill weren't just sitting there. They were paying attention to every word I said, every laugh, every tilt of my head. And I couldn't help but notice the way Bill's fingers brushed against the edge of his glass, almost unconsciously, every time I leaned a little closer. You've got this place looking amazing, Mark said, his voice low, casual, but somehow loaded with meaning. It really suits you. I smiled, letting my eyes linger on him. Thanks, I said softly. I tried to make it feel like home. Bill leaned back slightly, but his gaze didn't leave me. Feels cozy, he said, almost like a whisper meant only for me. Warm. Inviting. I laughed lightly, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. Glad you think so. But I have to admit, it's the company that really makes it special. Both of them shifted subtly, a mirrored reaction that made my pulse quicken. There was that spark again, that unspoken tension that seemed to hum in the air. I set my wine down and leaned against the counter, watching them. You know, I began teasing. I never realized just how competitive you two could be, in a friendly way, of course. Mark raised an eyebrow. Competitive? He asked, a small smirk tugging at his lips. I nodded slowly. Yeah. I mean, it's subtle, but I can see it. You're both trying to outdo each other, without saying a word. Bill chuckled, leaning forward just slightly. Maybe. Or maybe we're just drawn to the same things. His eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite name. A combination of curiosity, admiration, and something warmer. I let the silence stretch, giving them time to think, to react. The tension wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. It was in the small touches, the lingering glances, the way their eyes followed me as I moved around the room. I picked up the dessert tray I had set aside earlier, a playful smile on my lips. Well, I said, tilting my head at them both. I thought we might finish the night with something sweet. Care to join me? Mark and Bill exchanged a look, subtle but loaded with meaning, and I felt a thrill of anticipation. I think we can make room for dessert, Mark said, a small grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. Bill's smile was quiet but genuine, the kind that made the air between us almost electric. I carried the tray over to the table, letting my movements linger just long enough to draw their attention. Every step, every gesture seemed to stretch time, making the evening feel endless and full of possibility. We sat around the table, the desserts between us, but no one touched a bite yet. The conversation flowed, light but charged with energy. Jokes, laughter, teasing remarks. They all felt like little sparks lighting up the space between us. I have to say, I said, leaning forward slightly, I didn't expect tonight to be this enjoyable. Mark leaned in, resting his elbow on the table, eyes never leaving mine. Sometimes the best nights are the ones you don't plan, he said softly. Bill nodded, his hand brushing the edge of mine on the table ever so slightly. Exactly. And sometimes the right company makes everything better. The room seemed to shrink around us, the shadows, the soft lighting, the warmth from the wine, all creating a cocoon where it was just the three of us. I could feel the tension, the curiosity, the connection building, like the moment before a spark becomes fire. I stood again, carrying the empty dessert plates to the sink. I let my fingers brush lightly along the counter, a subtle reminder of my presence. And I caught their eyes lingering on me. You know, I said casually, I think some things are better when left a little mysterious. Mark chuckled softly, leaning back in his chair. Mysterious, huh? That's definitely your specialty. Bill smiled, eyes warm and focused. I like it. Makes the night more interesting. I returned to the table, settling into a chair between them, letting the energy of the evening wash over me. The chemistry wasn't loud, it wasn't forced. It was in the small touches, the playful glances, the way laughter and teasing danced around the edges of something more. We lingered there, talking, laughing, and just being present with one another. The curiosity hung in the air like a soft hum, a promise of possibilities without needing to define them. I let my hand brush against Mark's arm casually, then Bill's, watching the subtle reactions, the quick intake of breath, the way their eyes followed me. It was a game, a slow dance of tension and connection. Every moment, every glance, every word was charged with anticipation, leaving just enough to the imagination to keep hearts racing. And in that room, under the warm glow of the kitchen lights, we all knew one thing. Tonight was just the beginning. The night had settled into a quiet rhythm, the soft hum of the city outside mixing with the faint clink of glasses and the occasional laughter. Yet inside, the energy between us was anything but calm. Every glance, every half-smile carried a weight that made the air shimmer. I leaned back in my chair, swirling the last drops of wine in my glass. Mark's eyes followed my movements, steady and unwavering. Bill, sitting across from me, had that subtle, mischievous glint that made it impossible not to feel noticed. You know, I began, letting my voice drop just enough to draw attention. There's something kind of thrilling about evenings like this. Something unpredictable. Mark tilted his head, his smile quiet but knowing. Unpredictable can be fun, he said. Especially when you don't know what's coming next. Bill nodded in agreement, leaning forward slightly, just enough to close the space between us without actually touching. Yeah, he said softly. Keeps you on your toes. I smiled, letting the tension linger. Exactly. And I like to keep things interesting. Don't you? Their silence was telling. Both were fully aware that the air between us was charged with unspoken possibilities. I let my hand brush lightly across the edge of the table, letting my fingers linger a moment longer than necessary. Their reactions were subtle but clear, small smiles, a flicker of curiosity in their eyes. The way they leaned in slightly. I stood, moving toward the window to draw the curtains against the soft glow of streetlights. The motion was casual, but it gave them a chance to notice the sway of my movements, the way I carried myself with quiet confidence. Mark's voice broke the silence, low and thoughtful. You really know how to make a simple evening feel special. Bill added, a teasing note in his tone. Yeah. Makes it hard to focus on anything else. I turned, letting my eyes meet theirs. That's kind of the point, I said with a playful smile. I like the moments that make people pay attention. The three of us fell into a comfortable rhythm, our conversation flowing easily, punctuated by teasing remarks, laughter, and glances that said more than words ever could. I noticed the subtle ways they tried to outdo each other. Mark with his thoughtful observations, Bill with his quick wit. Both were trying, in their own ways, to impress me. I leaned back in my chair, letting my fingers play idly with the stem of my wine glass. It's funny, I said, how two people can be completely different but still complement each other perfectly. Mark raised an eyebrow, curiosity sparking in his gaze. Complement each other? I nodded, letting a small smile play at my lips. Yeah. Different strengths, different perspectives. But when you put them together, it just works. Feels right. Bill caught my meaning instantly. His smile was slow, warm, and filled with something unspoken. I think I know what you mean, he said softly. There was a pause, a small moment where time seemed to stretch. I let it linger, enjoying the way the room seemed to shrink around us, focusing entirely on the subtle play of energy between three people. I stood, moving a little closer to the table, letting my presence command attention without saying a word. I don't think I've felt this kind of connection in a long time, I said, voice soft but deliberate. It's rare and worth noticing. Mark's lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. I'd say we feel the same way, he replied, leaning forward just slightly. Bill's gaze softened, warm and sincere. Yeah, it's like something clicked tonight. Something that doesn't happen often. I let my hand rest lightly on the back of my chair, letting my eyes meet theirs in turn. Exactly, I said. And the best part? We're just getting started. The air between us seemed to hum with possibility. A quiet, playful tension that made every glance, every small gesture, feel meaningful. No one rushed, no one crossed lines, but the chemistry was undeniable. I moved to refill their glasses, letting the motion be casual but slow enough for them to notice. Mark leaned back slightly, a small grin tugging at his lips. Bill's fingers brushed against mine as I handed him his glass, and the contact was brief but electrifying. Sitting back down, I let the conversation drift to lighter topics, jokes and stories flowing freely. Yet beneath it all, the tension remained, an unspoken promise lingering just beneath the surface. Every smile, every laugh, every playful glance added to the growing curiosity. What would happen next? I caught Mark's eye, then Bill's, letting a small, teasing smirk curl my lips. You know, I said lightly, some nights are meant to be remembered. And this one feels like it's going to be unforgettable. Their reactions were immediate but subtle. Mark's grin widened, just slightly, and Bill's eyes sparkled with a mixture of amusement and intrigue. The energy in the room shifted, the anticipation building without a word spoken. The kind of chemistry that kept hearts racing and imaginations active. I leaned back in my chair again, letting the silence stretch for just a moment, enough for them to feel it, enough for the curiosity to grow. I didn't need to say more. The moment itself was saying everything. The playful glances, the subtle touches, the warmth in their eyes, they all spoke volumes. And in that quiet, charged space, I knew one thing for certain. The night was far from over. There was more laughter, more teasing, more stolen glances to come. More connection, more curiosity, and the slow, inevitable pull that kept us all engaged, wanting more, imagining what might unfold. The spark was there, and I was going to let it grow, carefully, teasingly, and beautifully.